My name is Kwame Mensah, and on paper my life reads like a fairy tale every ambitious young man dreams of. I am 32 years old, the youngest billionaire in my region, owner of Mensah Global Holdings, a name that opens doors in Accra, London, Dubai, and New York. When I walk into a room, men straighten their backs, women adjust their posture, and silence follows behind me like a respectful shadow. Yet, every evening when I return to my glass-walled penthouse overlooking the restless lights of OSU and cantonments, I am met with a loneliness so deep that even money cannot silence it. My mother used to sit beside me under the old mango tree in Akwasi and say, "Kwame, my son, do not let wealth make your heart dry. A man is not judged by his bank account but by how he treats those with nothing." She passed away before she could witness the empire I built. My father followed shortly after. Since then, my world has been made of contracts, conference calls, private jets, and silent dinners eaten alone while watching the city breathe beneath me. That evening, something inside me stirred. I told my driver to take the long route through the older parts of Accra. "Sir, the traffic will be heavy," he warned. "I need to remember the real world," I replied. As we moved past the bustling life of Medina, I noticed the simple rhythm of people trying to survive. Women balancing bowls on their heads, children laughing barefoot, vendors shouting daily promises of food and comfort. Then I saw her. She stood beside a small wooden stall, illuminated by a dim yellow bulb. Her hands moved gracefully over sizzling plantain, the aroma of fried kelaweel wrapping the air in warmth and memory. She wore a modest Ankara wrapper and a simple blouse, yet carried herself with quiet elegance. Her face glowed with a gentle humility that no designer dress could ever replicate. "Stop the car," I instructed. Ya looked at me through the mirror. "Here, sir?" "Yes." I stepped out, the cool evening breeze brushing my tailored suit as I walked toward her stall. She looked up, slightly startled, but her eyes softened instantly into a welcoming smile. "Good evening, sir," she greeted. "You are welcome. What would you like?" For a moment I forgot who I was. I forgot the billions sitting in my accounts, the meetings waiting for me tomorrow, the expectations resting on my shoulders. I saw only a woman and the warmth of her presence. "Whatever you suggest," I answered quietly. She chuckled, a soft sound that felt like a forgotten melody. "Then you will try my special kelaweel. People say it heals a tired heart." Her words struck me more deeply than she could imagine. As she served the food, our fingers brushed briefly, and something invisible stirred within my chest. Not desire. Not lust. Something softer. Something sacred. "What is your name?" I asked, settling onto a nearby plastic chair. "Efua," she replied. "And yours, sir?" "Kwame." "Nice to meet you, Kwame. You do not look like someone who eats roadside food," she added teasingly. I smiled faintly. Maybe I am tired of places where food has no soul. She paused, studying me with curious eyes that seemed to see beyond my polished shoes and gold wristwatch. The evening stretched into gentle conversation. She spoke of her daily struggles, of waking before dawn to prepare food, of caring for her sick father, and of her quiet dreams to someday own a proper restaurant. I listened not as a billionaire but as a man yearning to remember what life once felt like. As the night deepened, I realized something unsettling yet beautiful. For the first time in years, my heart felt awake. And as I left that stall, I could not shake the feeling that meeting Efua was not accident, but destiny preparing to rewrite my carefully planned life. Little did I know that this humble roadside food vendor would soon become the center of my world, and the test of everything I believed about love, class, and who I truly was. I did not sleep well that night. No matter how many times I turned in my silk sheets, the scent of fried plantain and ginger danced through my thoughts, along with Efua's quiet smile and the calm way she had spoken about her life. It was strange how a woman who owned nothing but a wooden stall and a charcoal stove could leave such an impression on a man who controlled skyscrapers. By morning, my schedule was already suffocating me. Meetings with investors from London, a conference call with Dubai, and a board presentation that demanded my full authority. Yet, between the numbers and profit charts, my mind drifted back to the roadside stall in Medina. By evening, I found myself giving Yo the same instruction. "Drive through Medina again." He glanced at me cautiously. "Sir, is everything all right?" "I just want kelaweel," I replied flatly. He nodded, but I saw the doubt in his eyes. A man like me did not eat kelaweel from the roadside. But I had stopped caring about what a man like me was supposed to do. When we arrived, my heart tightened with relief. Efua was there, arranging her stall, humming softly as she worked. The sight of her soothed something deep within me. You came back, she said with a gentle smile. Your Kelawheel haunted my dreams, I replied, settling onto the familiar plastic chair. She laughed softly. Then I must be a powerful cook. As she served me, I noticed her fingers were slightly burned, the small scars evidence of the daily price she paid for survival. Yet she never complained. Not once did she carry bitterness in her voice. How long have you been doing this? I asked. Since I was 17, she replied. After my mother passed, everything changed. My father was once strong, a carpenter in his prime. But sickness humbled him quickly. Someone had to feed us. There was no self-pity in her tone, only acceptance. That moved me more than tears ever could. And your dreams? I asked quietly. She paused, her eyes drifting toward the street as if her aspirations lived somewhere beyond the traffic. I want a small restaurant. Just something neat. A place where people feel at home when they eat. I smiled. That sounds like a beautiful dream. What about you, Kwame? She asked. What is your dream? The question caught me off balance. No one had asked me that in a long time. I used to dream of freedom, I admitted. Now I own everything, but it still feels like something is missing. She looked at me quietly. Maybe freedom is not found in money but in peace. Her words settled into me slowly, like warm soup on a cold evening. From that day I became a regular visitor. Not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, but as a simple man chasing sincerity. Our conversations grew deeper. We spoke of faith, pain, resilience, and all the quiet things people hide behind forced smiles. She told me how her mother used to braid her hair and pray over her every night. I told her how my mother taught me to treat people with kindness even when power tried to harden my heart. One night, as the moon hung low over Accra, she surprised me with a question. Why do you really come here, Kwame? I hesitated. Because when I sit here I feel like myself, I finally said. Not a businessman, just a man. She studied my face for a long moment. You carry a sadness that money cannot heal. Her insight pierced me. Still I chose silence over truth. I did not tell her who I really was. Fear held me prisoner, fear that revealing my identity would erase the simple purity that existed between us. It was during one of these evenings that everything began to shift. My phone rang loudly beside me. It was Kojo, my business partner. Kwame, where are you? We are expecting you at the private dinner with the ministers, he said sharply. I won't make it tonight, I replied. What? You cannot cancel on powerful people for pleasure drives. I looked at Efua, who pretended not to listen but was clearly aware of the tension. I said I won't make it, I repeated firmly and hung up. Efua turned slowly. You sound like a man with heavy responsibilities. Every man carries something, I murmured. Her lips curved slightly, but the curiosity in her eyes grew stronger. From that day onward she began to ask more about my life. My hesitation became more noticeable. And the truth was, my silence was slowly building a wall between us. Yet in those moments where we laughed, when I watched her smile as children ran past her stall, my heart whispered a dangerous truth. I was falling for her. Not for her food. Not for her humility. But for the woman who saw me, even without knowing who I truly was. But love has a way of demanding honesty. And deep down, I knew the moment of reckoning was drawing closer. A moment that would either bring us closer together, or tear us apart forever. If anyone had told me 6 months ago that a simple food vendor would become the quiet center of my existence, I would have laughed in disbelief. Yet there I was, seated on a faded plastic chair beneath a flickering bulb in Medina, waiting eagerly for Efua to finish serving a queue of tired workers and restless students. The world had reduced itself to that single corner of Accra. Each evening I found reasons to pass by. Some nights I stayed for hours, listening to her talk about life, about patience, about the stubborn hope that pushed her forward even when her strength faded. She never spoke of luxury. Her dreams were modest, yet they carried depth. One night, as rain drizzled gently and thunder whispered across the skies, Efua served the last customer and sat opposite me, wiping her hands with a small cloth. You have been coming too often, she said, her voice lighter than her eyes. Is that a crime? I asked. No, but it is unusual, she replied softly. Men like you don't find comfort in places like this for too long. I swallowed. Men like me? And what do you think I am? She leaned forward slightly, studying my face the way a mother studies a restless child. You dress like someone used to power. Your phone rings like a man who commands attention. Yet you sit here quietly as if you are hiding from your own world. Her words unsettled me. Maybe I am, I admitted. Silence fell between us, heavy and revealing. Kwame, she continued gently, I like your company, but I fear your silence. There is something you are not saying. My heart pounded harder than any business negotiation had ever made it beat. The truth hovered dangerously close to my lips. Yet cowardice held me still. No one stays hidden forever, she added. Her honesty shook me, not with fear but with an unfamiliar tenderness. That night, when you drove me home, my thoughts swam between desire and dread. I had fallen for her. There was no denying it now. But how would she react when she found out I was not just a quiet stranger, but a billionaire whose world could swallow hers whole? 2 days later, everything changed. I arrived earlier than usual, eager to see her, only to find the stall unattended. The charcoal stove was cold. The streets murmured with ordinary life, but something felt wrong. I approached a nearby woman. Where is Efua? I asked. She left early, the woman replied. Her father collapsed this morning. She rushed to the hospital. My chest tightened. Without thinking, I told you to follow me to the nearest government hospital. As I walked down the long corridor, the scent of disinfectant filled the air, stirring memories of my mother's final days. I found Efua seated on a bench, her head bowed, her hands trembling. Her strength, once so steady, now looked fragile. Efua, I whispered. She looked up, and her eyes shimmered with unspoken pain. He is not well, Kwame, she said quietly. The doctors say his condition is worsening. Medicine is expensive. I sat beside her. Don't worry, I replied instinctively. I will manage it. She turned sharply. You cannot, she protested. This is my burden. No, I said firmly, surprising even myself. It is ours. Her gaze searched my face for sincerity. That night, I paid for the best treatment available without revealing my identity. Yet whispers traveled fast within the hospital. A nurse approached her later. Madam, your benefactor is a very important man, she said. Efua stiffened. Her eyes drifted toward me slowly. What are you not telling me, Kwame? The question now carried a new weight, suspicion woven with betrayal. I wanted to help, I replied gently. That is all. But how do you help so easily? She demanded. How can a man who eats kelaweel from my stall suddenly afford private treatment? Silence fell sharply between us. That was the moment I had feared. Days passed without her returning my calls. My world felt abruptly empty. No business transaction inflicted pain like this quiet distance. Then I received a message from Kojo. She knows, huh? My heart skipped. Knows what? I replied. You really thought keeping your identity from her forever was wise? Word is spreading, Kwame. She has been asking questions. That night I could not breathe comfortably. I returned to the stall hoping she had come back. And she was there, standing rigid, arms crossed, eyes reflecting disappointment rather than anger. You lied to me, she said without greeting. I protected the simplicity we shared, I replied painfully. I was afraid of losing you. Do you know how that feels? She whispered. To realize that the man who laughed with me is a stranger hiding behind wealth? I am still the same man, I urged. Then why did you not trust me with the truth, Kwame Mensah? She asked sharply. Hearing my full name from her lips twisted my soul. I was scared, I confessed. Scared you would see me differently. She stepped back slowly, shaking her head. You took my choice away. I reached out, but she moved further from me. You made me feel safe, she continued, voice cracking. Now I don't know who you are. The hurt in her eyes carved through me. At that moment I realized something devastating. Love had found me, and my fear had almost destroyed it. As she turned to walk away, a sudden cry interrupted the night. A strange man stood at the edge of her stall, smirking. Efua, you thought you could avoid me forever? Her body stiffened visibly. She whispered under her breath, not now. I looked at the man, confusion and tension colliding in my chest. Who is he? I asked, stepping forward protectively. But Efua's silence spoke volumes. And the look of dread in her eyes told me this was not just a stranger. This was a shadow from her past, one capable of changing everything. And I knew instinctively that whatever came next would either separate us forever, or bind our souls beyond repair. The air shifted the moment that man stepped into the dim circle of light beside Efua's stall. His presence felt heavy, like a storm cloud hanging low over still water. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that held arrogance and familiarity, the dangerous kind that spoke of unresolved history. He stood with a crooked smile, the type that never reached the soul. Efua, he repeated, dragging her name as though it belonged to him. You hallucinated wealth and thought you could silence my memory? Her lips pressed tightly together. Leave, Kabi. You are not welcome here. So that was his name. Kabi. It tasted bitter just hearing it. He chuckled mockingly. You said that before, didn't you? And yet you still breathe my air. Or have you now found a replacement? His eyes flicked toward me, scanning my tailored suit and polished shoes with visible irritation. A low laugh escaped his throat. So this is him? The rich savior? He scoffed. From frying plantains to dining with gold? I took a measured step forward, shielding Efua instinctively, my voice calm but firm. You will address her with respect. He tilted his head, amused. And who are you to command me? A man who won't tolerate your disrespect, I replied. Efua's hand gently touched my arm. Please, Kwame, don't. But Kabi had already committed himself to chaos. You left me when I had nothing, he spat at her bitterly. Now suddenly you think you deserve happiness because money has found you? I left because you hurt me, she replied quietly. Physically and emotionally. You were never safe. Her confession tightened my jaw. The image of this man raising his hands against her awakened a fury inside me I did not know I possessed. He leaned in closer, invading her space. You made me that way, he said coldly. And now I want what is mine. Efua is not your property, I snapped, stepping closer. His face darkened. Careful, rich boy. Accra streets don't bend for your money. I could see fear flicker momentarily in Efua's eyes. But she stayed firm, her voice steady like quiet thunder. You have no claim over my life anymore. A small crowd had gathered now, eyes wide, whispers weaving through the humid night air. This was not a private confrontation. It was public shame, public wounds reopening. Kabi smirked, glancing around. You hear that? She thinks she is royalty now. He turned to walk away, then paused, eyes narrowing as he looked back at her. You cannot erase me, Efua. I will return. And when I do, the truth you buried will surface. And just like that, he vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a silence so loud it echoed against my bones. Efua lowered herself slowly onto the chair, her hands trembling. Are you all right? I asked softly. She nodded faintly. He should not have returned. Who is he really? I pressed gently. Her eyes filled with old sorrow. A mistake I thought I had buried forever. I sat beside her, silence becoming our fragile refuge. The gentle hum of nighttime Accra returned. But even the city's rhythm could not restore the peace that Kabi had shattered. Later that night, as Yo drove us both home, she finally spoke again. He was my first love, she whispered. We were young. I believed in him. I stood by him even when everyone warned me. And? I asked quietly. He became bitter. He drank. He became angry. And when money refused to come, his fists found me instead. My heart ached hearing her truth. Every word carved deeper understanding, not pity but respect for her survival. I left because I feared I would die if I stayed, she added, staring out the window. I clenched my fist. He will never touch you again. Her eyes slowly turned to me. You cannot protect me from everything. I will protect you from pain wherever I can, I replied firmly. A soft silence thickened between us, but this time it carried something different. Vulnerability healing itself through honesty. The days that followed were uneasy. Efua moved carefully. Her smiles were softer, her laughter less bold. Something sacred had been unsettled. And yet I found myself drawn closer to her. There was bravery in the way she faced pain without surrendering her purity. One afternoon, I surprised her with lunch at a small quiet cafe. I thought you preferred your humble stall, she teased faintly. I prefer your company, I replied simply. Her gaze held mine just a second longer than usual. You still have not apologized, she murmured. For hiding who I am? I sighed. I regret it deeply. She nodded slowly. I wish you had trusted me. I want to rebuild that trust, I said, my voice raw. Piece by piece. Her silence spoke louder than words. Later, as we walked through the streets of OSU, our fingers brushed lightly, and then stayed together. It was a gentle surrender, the kind that carries hesitation and longing at once. For the first time, I realized that love was not fireworks. It was soft surrender. It was choice. It was risk. But love also holds tests. 3 days later, Kabi returned. This time not alone. He arrived with 2 men behind him, their energy hostile, their eyes predatory. My security team had already grown more alert, but this confrontation happened too fast. You thought a small talk ended everything? He spat. You were warned, I replied firmly. I am here for what belongs to me, he insisted. Efua stepped forward bravely. You never owned me. Kabi's laugh echoed dangerously. Then perhaps your past does. What are you talking about? I asked sharply. His eyes darkened. Ask her about the child she abandoned. The world stilled. My breath froze. Efua staggered back as if struck, her face drained of color. What child? I whispered. She could not look at me. The silence screamed louder than any confession. And within that silence lived a devastating question that threatened to unravel everything we were struggling to build. Was there a part of her life I did not know, a life that could change the very foundation of my growing love? I stepped closer, my voice barely above a whisper. Efua, is what he says true? Tears rolled quietly down her cheeks. And in that fragile moment of heartbreak, I realized that love does not only reveal beauty, it also exposes buried truths. But even as fear locked my heart in trembling disbelief, something within me whispered a painful certainty. Whatever secret she carried, it had been born from survival, not betrayal. And I knew the moment she would finally speak would either shatter my faith forever, or bind me to her more deeply than I ever imagined possible. The day the truth began to crawl out of its hiding place started like any other quiet morning in Accra, but my spirit knew something was different even before my eyes opened. I stood by the wide glass windows of my East Legon penthouse, watching the sun stretch its golden fingers over the restless city. The horns of impatient drivers, the calls of early traders, the distant rhythm of life, all of it felt strangely distant to me. My mind was no longer chained to boardrooms or profit margins. It was fixed on one small roadside kitchen and the woman whose laughter had become a soft melody in my heart. Ama Serwa. It still stunned me how a food vendor serving wache and kelaweel on a wooden bench had managed to soften a heart that billions could never tame. I had planned to visit her that morning as I had done every other day for the past week, but before I could leave, my phone buzzed sharply on the marble table. The screen read, Kofi Ajay, personal assistant. Sir, good morning, Kofi said, his voice tight. There is a woman downstairs insisting to see you. She claims it is urgent and personal. Did she give a name? I asked, already irritated. He hesitated. She says you will know her. She called herself Nana Ya. The name hit me like a slap from the past. Nana Ya. The woman my family had once tried to shape into my future wife. The woman I had walked away from. The woman who had never forgiven me. Let her up, I said quietly. Minutes later, she stood in my living room, still elegant, still dressed to impress, still carrying the same sharpness in her eyes. But something was twisted now. Desperation clung to her beauty like a shadow. Akwasi Mensa, she said with a tight smile. So this is where you run to hide from the world. I didn't invite drama into my home, Nana, I replied flatly. Say what you came to say. She laughed bitterly. Straight to business. Still the same man who broke my heart without batting an eyelash. We are not here to revisit the past, I said. You said it was urgent. Her eyes softened, then hardened again. You think you can just romance roadside girls and rewrite your story like a fairy tale? My jaw tightened. Watch your words. So it's true, she sneered. The mighty billionaire is now dining in dirt with a food vendor. She is more human than most people you and I have ever sat with, I said, my voice sharp as broken glass. Nana stepped closer. Do you know who she really is? I froze. What nonsense is this? Her lips curved slowly. Ask her about her mother. Ask her about Abina Serwa. Or better still, ask her how she knows your name without you ever introducing yourself. A strange chill crawled through my spine. You are lying, I muttered. I was waiting for this moment, she whispered. Because when you find out, Akwasi, you will realize she didn't find you by accident. She was sent. Before I could demand more, she turned and walked away, leaving me with whispers louder than thunder. I still went to Ama's spot that afternoon, but I arrived with a storm inside my heart. She was smiling when she saw me, wiping her hands on her apron. You're late today, my billionaire customer. That name again, I said faintly. She laughed softly. You still don't deny it. I studied her face, the soft curve of her cheek, the innocence in her eyes. But Nana's voice echoed in my mind. Ask her about her mother. Ama, I began slowly. Tell me about your family. Her smile dimmed slightly. I don't like talking about that. Why? I pressed gently. My mother died when I was young. I don't remember much about her. What was her name? A pause settled between us. Abina Serwa, she replied. The ground shifted beneath my feet. And your father? I whispered. He left before I was born. All my mother ever said was that he came from money and chose wealth over love. Cold silence wrapped around my bones. Amma, how did you know my name? I asked. Her eyes flickered. You never told me. She swallowed. Sometimes people talk around here. You are not exactly invisible in Accra. My heart pounded. I reached into my pocket and unfolded an old photograph, my late mother smiling beside a younger Abina Surwa. Amma stared at it breathless. That woman, she whispered. That is my mother. The world stopped spinning. I felt my throat close as I lowered the photo. They were best friends, I murmured. Until she disappeared, the same year my father forced her away when she became pregnant. Amma's hands trembled. What are you saying? A long, unbearable silence. I believe you and I are tied by something neither of us knew existed. Her expression turned pale. You mean? No, I interrupted quickly, realizing what her mind was racing toward. Not siblings. But something dangerously close to our pasts. Tears welled in her eyes. Then why did fate bring us together like this? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that my world had cracked open. That night, I returned home unable to sleep. I poured whiskey I didn't drink. I stared at a life that suddenly felt scripted by unseen hands. Was our love destined? Or were we pawns in a cruel circle of unfinished history? The next morning, a call shattered the quiet. Mr. Mensah, a deep voice announced. This is Dr. Kwame Arma from Koralbu Teaching Hospital. Amma Surwa has been admitted. She collapsed at her food stand. My heart froze. I'm coming now. When I arrived at the hospital, Amma was lying pale on the bed, her tubes resting in her arm. Her face looked fragile like a broken melody. Dr. Arma sighed. She is suffering emotional shock. Severe stress triggered it. I clenched my fist. She woke up. Yes, but she's still weak. I stepped into the room and sat beside her carefully. Why didn't you tell me how much this revelation was hurting you? I whispered. She closed her eyes. I didn't know whether to run from you or hold you closer. I reached for her hand. Amma, no matter what history says, my heart chose you before our past even spoke. Her voice cracked. But what if loving me destroys your empire, Akwasi? I already lost peace long before you walked into my life, I replied. You only taught me how to breathe again. Her hand curled around mine. You still want me? She whispered. Yes, I said firmly. More than I've ever wanted anything money could buy. A faint smile trembled onto her lips. But just as hope began to settle, footsteps echoed behind me. I turned. My father stood at the doorway. Ice cold. Face hardened by pride. So this is the girl tearing my son apart, he spoke. You always find trouble in the most unexpected places, Akwasi. My chest tightened. He turned to Amma. You may think fate brought you here, but history repeats itself, child. And I will not watch you ruin another generation of my bloodline. Amma tried to sit up, fear in her eyes. I stepped forward. You won't touch her. His gaze drilled through me. You will choose today, Akwasi. Your empire, or that girl. The air thickened like storm clouds. Outside, thunder rolled faintly across sky. And in that moment, I knew. My next decision would either shatter my family forever, or rewrite a legacy built on pain. And the walls of my carefully built world trembled in waiting. My father's presence in that hospital room drained all warmth from the air. The man who had raised me to believe power was everything now stood before me like a judge at the edge of my heart. Amma's frail body trembled slightly beneath the thin sheets, yet her eyes held a strength that surprised even me. Fear sat in them, yes, but so did defiance. The stubborn courage of a woman who had known hunger, rejection, and silence all her life. You will leave her alone, I said, stepping closer to my father, my voice no longer calm. This is not a business negotiation. His lips tightened. That is exactly what it is. Everything in your life is a negotiation, Akwasi. Including love. You destroyed one woman already with that mindset, I hissed. And you are not doing it again. Amma tried to sit up. Sir, I do not want to cause trouble. You already have, he interrupted coldly. Your mother did the same. She walked into our world thinking love was enough. It never is. My heart jerked painfully. You speak like she was a disease. She was a mistake, he snapped. A beautiful one, yes, but a costly error. Amma's face crumpled, and I felt something inside me break open like a wound that refused to heal. You don't get to define her, I growled. Nor this woman. He pointed at Amma. She is not the future I want for you. She is the past that should have stayed buried. I turned to Amma gently. Close your eyes. Don't listen to him. She nodded weakly, but I could see tears sliding silently down her cheeks. My father leaned in closer to me. If you choose her, you will lose the company, the board's support, and every partnership tied to your name. For years, those threats would have frozen my spine. But now, I only saw the lonely little boy in me who had watched his father replace affection with authority. Then consider this my resignation from your version of life, I replied quietly. His eyes widened. You would destroy everything for a roadside vendor? I would rebuild everything for a woman who taught me what home feels like. Silence settled, thick and electric. You have until the end of this week, he said sharply. Decide if you want to remain a Mensa or become a stranger to your own blood. And with that he walked out, leaving a storm in his wake. Amma stared at me, her lips trembling. You should not fight your family because of me. I am not fighting them, I said softly. I am fighting for myself. Tears gathered painfully in her eyes. What if I am the wrong battle? You are the first truth I have ever chosen, I whispered. And I am not letting go. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing my palm. That small touch felt like healing. Days passed like slow-burning fire. Rumors spread faster than the harmattan wind. Society ladies whispered in wine glasses. Business rivals sharpened smiles. My father's allies began creating invisible lines between me and my empire. Yet every evening I still drove to Amma's modest home near Medina, watching her sit on her small stool preparing soup for neighbors, laughing with children who adored her. She didn't know how powerful she really was. Or maybe she did and simply chose humility anyway. One evening, as the sky painted itself orange over Accra, she sat beside me under a mango tree. Akwasi, she said quietly, promise me something. Anything. If your world collapses because of me, do not turn into a bitter man. I tilted her chin gently. If my world changes, it will be because I chose joy for once. She smiled faintly. And what if your father never forgives you? I have lived my entire life trying to earn forgiveness I never caused, I replied. This time I want to earn happiness. Her eyes shone. For a moment, everything felt simple. But life rarely honors peace for long. 3 days later, a letter arrived from the board chairman. A formal removal motion had been initiated against me. My name now whispered through conference rooms like a scandal wrapped in gold. That night, Amma overheard 2 neighbors discussing my situation. You see, rich men's love is expensive. It comes with war, one woman muttered. Amma came to me later, her hands shaking. Maybe I should step away, she whispered. So you don't lose everything. I stared at her, pain burning behind my eyes. Do not even think that way again. But you are risking too much. I risked too little my whole life, I interrupted. This is the first time I am choosing something that feels real. She cried then. Not loudly, softly. Like rain grieving the earth. The next morning my driver rushed in. Sir, reporters are outside. Your father has called an emergency press conference. My heart thundered. We watched the broadcast on the large screen in my office. There he stood, proud and unwavering. My son has chosen a path that contradicts our family legacy, he announced. Therefore, with a heavy heart, I hereby declare my disassociation from his personal decisions and revoke his access to selected corporate powers. A knife twisted through my chest. Amma stood beside me. You don't have to go through this alone, she whispered. Her voice calmed the chaos. Yet somewhere deep inside me, fear curled like smoke. Not of losing wealth, but of losing her. That night, the sky poured heavy rain over Accra as if mourning with me. I sat on my balcony when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. A deep, unfamiliar voice answered. You do not know me, Mr. Mensa? But I know the truth about Amma Serwa's mother, and why she disappeared. My heart froze. What are you saying? If you marry that woman, you will uncover secrets that could destroy more than your father's reputation. Pause. And you will wish you never met her. The line went dead. I stared into the darkness, wondering if fate was warning me or daring me. Inside, Amma slept peacefully, unaware that the very roots of her existence were now tangled with danger and shadows. And as thunder rolled again over Accra's skyline, I realized one truth. Love had opened a door. But what stood behind it was a history not yet buried. And a future silently waiting to explode. The night after that anonymous call, sleep abandoned me like a traitor. I lay beside Amma, listening to the slow rhythm of her breathing, wondering what secrets could be heavy enough to threaten not just my name, but the fragile peace she had only just begun to taste. Her face in sleep was softer, free from the lines of worry that now seemed permanent when she was awake. How could a woman who only sold food by the roadside carry the weight of a history powerful men feared? By dawn I had made up my mind. I would find the truth even if it bled. I left Amma sleeping and drove straight to the old estate house my late mother once called home. It was dusty, abandoned, but the air still carried faint memories of her laughter, her perfume, her quiet strength. I had avoided this place for years. Now it called to me like an unanswered prayer. Inside, I found what I had almost forgotten existed. A locked wooden trunk. Its hinges screamed as I forced it open, revealing yellowed letters tied with faded ribbon, photographs of happier days, and a small leather diary, my mother's handwriting clear and delicate on the cover. My hands trembled as I opened it. Abina came to me crying today, one entry read. She says she is with child and Kwabena has refused to acknowledge it. I warned her. Loving a rich man in this world comes with cruel costs. Bina. Amma's mother. My heart pounded violently. Another page. Kofi Mensah does not want the child born. He says it will weaken the family name. He plans to send Abina away to the northern region to disappear quietly. Cold sweat crawled down my spine. Disappear. So Nana wasn't entirely lying. But why had this stranger warned me now? When I returned home, Amma was already awake, sitting by the window, hugging her knees. You left without a word, she said softly. I feared you were running. I am running toward the truth, I replied gently, sitting beside her. Her eyes searched my face. Tell me what is happening, Akwasi. I can no longer live in silence. I exhaled slowly. Your mother was not just a poor woman who got unlucky. She was deliberately erased because her pregnancy threatened my family's image. Amma's breath caught. They wanted her gone. Hidden. Silenced. So my life began as shame? She whispered bitterly. No, I said firmly. It began as strength. They feared what she represented. Her eyes shimmered faintly. And now they fear me too. Because you remind them that power has roots, I murmured. And some roots choke lies. We sat in silence, the weight of painful truth wrapping around us. Then my phone buzzed again. This time the number showed. I answered cautiously. You are getting closer, Akwasi Mensah, the voice returned. But be careful. Your father's sins are deeper than you know. Who are you? I demanded. A low chuckle vibrated through the line. Someone who watched your mother cry when Abina was taken in the dead of night. My grip tightened. Why now? Because history deserves a voice, and Amma deserves justice. Before I could respond, the call ended again, leaving my chest burning like a wound reopened. That evening, Amma insisted we walk together in the quiet streets. The sun dipped low, painting Accra in soft gold and fading shadows. If everything collapses, she said quietly, will you regret loving me? I stopped and faced her. I regret every year I lived without you. Her eyes softened. And if this truth breaks your father forever? She asked. He built his throne on someone else's pain, I replied. It deserves to crack. She exhaled, and for the first time in days, her lips curved in a small smile. I am tired of running from my past, she whispered. If my mother was silenced, then I will speak louder for her. I took her hands. Together. She nodded slowly. Together. But darkness does not surrender easily. That night a car followed us home. Its headlights lingered too long. Its engine stayed too quiet. Fear crept like cold fingers down my spine. Amma noticed too. Are we safe? She asked. For now, I said, though truthfully I wasn't sure. The following morning, documents slipped anonymously under my door. Old hospital records. Birth logs. And one final photograph. Abina Surwa standing beside my father. Very much alive. Very much pregnant. And smiling. My hands shook violently. That smile was not the smile of a woman disappearing quietly. It was the smile of someone promised protection. I stared at the photo, realization crawling slowly up my spine like a snake tasting truth. This was not just betrayal. This was arrangement. Conspiracy. Control. Amma stood behind me staring at the image. He knew, she whispered. He knew all along I existed. A slow fury rose inside me. And as rage met heartbreak, I swore silently. He would answer. I confronted my father that same afternoon. He looked at the photo without blinking. So you finally found the truth, he said calmly. You made her disappear, I spat. And you watched her suffer in silence. She agreed to leave, he replied. With compensation. Amma's eyes widened behind me. You paid my mother to vanish? She whispered. She was a risk to the family's stability, he responded coldly. And you, girl, are proof that mistake survived. I stepped forward, fists clenched. She was human. She was inconvenient, he said. And I solved it. A bitter silence filled the air. Amma stepped forward, trembling yet fierce. Then look at the inconvenience standing before you. I will not be erased again. Something flickered in his eyes, perhaps guilt, perhaps regret. But before words could heal anything, his phone rang. He answered briefly, then his expression shifted. Your mother? He said slowly, looking at Amma. She is at Ridge Hospital. The world spun. She has been alive all this time, he added quietly. And she has asked to see you. Amma's knees nearly gave way. Alive. After all these years. A ghost now breathed. And as we stood frozen between shock and revelation, I realized. This reunion would not only reopen wounds. It would decide whether love could truly survive truth. And the past had just risen from its grave. The ride to Ridge Hospital felt like a journey between two lifetimes. Amma sat beside me, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her eyes fixed on nothing and everything all at once. She had spent her entire life believing her mother had vanished into poverty and silence. Now suddenly that ghost had a heartbeat. Are you sure this is not a cruel trick? She whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the car. I asked the same question, I replied gently. But the records were real. The nurses confirmed her name. Abina Surwa has been here for years under discreet care. Amma swallowed hard. So while I struggled, while I slept hungry, while I sold food on dusty streets, my mother was alive? I had no answer that could ease such pain. When we entered the private ward, the smell of antiseptic and quiet sorrow wrapped around us. A nurse gestured softly toward the bed. There she lay, thinner, older, but unmistakably alive. Abina Surwa. Her eyes, though aged by time and hardship, held a familiar softness I had seen in Amma many times when she smiled. Mame, Amma's voice cracked as she stepped forward. The woman turned slowly as though afraid hope might betray her again. When her gaze settled on Amma, tears flooded her tired eyes. My child, she breathed. My daughter. Amma rushed forward, sinking to her knees by the bed, clutching her mother's frail hands as if afraid she might disappear again. You left me, she whispered through sobs. Why did you leave me? Abina's face tightened with grief. I did not abandon you. I was forced away to protect you. Your life was threatened before you even knew this world. Amma shook her head in disbelief. By who? The silence stretched painfully. Then Abina turned her gaze toward me, and beyond me. Kofi Mensah. The name fell like thunder. He paid men to make me vanish, she continued weakly. He promised I would be kept alive, that my child would not be harmed. But I was forbidden to see you. Forbidden to speak your name. Amma clutched her chest as though the confession physically wounded her. And you agreed? She cried. I chose your survival over my freedom, Abina whispered. Every night, I prayed that you would grow into a woman braver than the men who tried to erase us. Tears streamed down Amma's face freely now. All this time I thought you abandoned me. I never stopped loving you, Abina sobbed. Not once. I stood frozen, watching two souls reunite after decades of forced separation, my heart torn between fury and bittersweet relief. The nurse returned quietly and informed us Abina's condition was delicate. Years of suppressed access to healthcare, emotional trauma, and isolation had ravaged her body. She does not have much time, the nurse added softly. Amma's eyes widened. No, please. Abina managed a faint smile. I have waited long enough to see your face again. That is all the healing my heart needed. Amma leaned forward, resting her head against her mother's fragile hand. Stay, please. I just found you. I will stay as long as God allows, Abina replied softly. But promise me you will not let bitterness turn you into a stone. Amma nodded through tears. I promise. And in that moment my world shifted again. Love had brought us together. But truth now demanded something greater. Justice. Later that evening as Amma rested, my father stood waiting outside the hospital, his posture rigid, his face drained of its usual authority. You have seen her, he said quietly. That is more than I allowed myself. You destroyed her life, I snapped. And you robbed Amma of a childhood with love. I made a decision for the family, he murmured. One I thought necessary at the time. You call silencing a woman love for family? I demanded. You imprisoned her like a shameful secret. He looked away. I did what powerful men do. And that is exactly why your empire is rotting from the inside, I said bitterly. A long pause followed. You want to marry her, don't you? He asked slowly. Yes, I replied without hesitation. And you still will, after seeing the destruction my choices caused? Perhaps even more, I answered. Because now I understand the courage it takes to survive your world. He exhaled heavily. Then the board will not stop you, he spoke at last. But know this, when the truth becomes public, the family name will collapse before it heals. I met his gaze. Let it fall. Something cleaner will rise. That night, Amma and I sat outside the hospital garden beneath soft moonlight. She remembers everything, Amma whispered. The lullabies, the way she used to braid my hair, things I thought I imagined as a child. She held on just to see you again, I murmured gently. Amma looked at me then. And you still want to walk into all this chaos with me? I walked through chaos for years without love, I replied softly. I will walk through truth with you gladly. Her eyes softened, trembling with emotion. I am scared, she confessed. So am I admitted. But fear feels different when your heart chooses who to stand beside. She leaned her head gently on my shoulder. And for the first time since our journey began, serenity wrapped around us almost peacefully. But just as calm began to settle, my phone vibrated again. A final message from an unknown contact flashed on the screen. You think the truth ends with Abina? Prepare yourself. The greatest betrayal is yet to be revealed. My breath tightened. Amma noticed my expression. What is it? I slipped the phone into my pocket slowly, realizing fate was still tightening its grip around us. The past, I whispered, staring into the distance, is not finished speaking. And as the wind moved softly through the garden trees, I knew one thing with certainty. Abina's return was only the beginning, and what lay ahead would either shatter us completely, or bind us stronger than fear itself. The message haunted me all night. The greatest betrayal is yet to be revealed. The words etched themselves into my mind, gnawing at the edges of peace that Amma and I had only just begun to taste. By morning, Accra was bright, indifferent to the storm brewing in my heart. I drove Amma to her stall anyway, knowing that routine grounded her, even when the past threatened to unravel everything. She moved with quiet grace, serving wache and kelaweel with the same soft laughter that had first drawn me to her. Yet every smile she gave me carried a shadow I could not dispel. I could not wait any longer. The phone call, the message, the anonymous interference. Someone knew more than we did. And it was time to find out what. I requested an urgent meeting with my father, this time in private. His office, always cold and imposing, felt even harsher under the weight of what I intended to confront him with. I want the truth, I said, standing tall, trying to keep my emotions in check. No more secrets, no more lies. Amma's mother, my mother, everything that was taken from her, tell me why. He sighed heavily, the air between us heavy with unsaid regrets. You were never supposed to know all of this, he began slowly. Your mother, she was young, foolish perhaps, but she loved your father. Abina, she was different. Independent. Determined. Dangerous to the family name because she would not be controlled. I felt my jaw tighten. Dangerous? Because she wanted to live. Yes, he admitted, his voice low. And when she became pregnant, the only way to preserve our lineage and the empire was to remove her. I did what I thought necessary. I will not apologize for keeping the family alive. And the betrayal? The message I got last night? What else is there? I pressed. His eyes darkened. Amma, she is not just the daughter of Abina Serwa. She carries a connection you never imagined. Her mother was involved in philanthropic work and discovered some embezzlement in my company decades ago. She had evidence. That evidence could have ruined us if ever made public. The room spun slightly. So all this, hiding her, sending her away, it wasn't just about family pride? No, he admitted, a rare crack in his stoic facade. It was about survival. Protecting the empire, protecting you, protecting the secrets of men who should have been accountable. I sank into the chair, numb. Amma's life, her struggle, had been a shield for greed and fear. And every hardship she endured had roots in my father's sins. I took a deep breath. Then she deserves to know. Everything. My father nodded slowly. Yes. But you must decide. The revelation will shake more than hearts. It will shake reputations, partnerships, and possibly your entire empire. I thought of Amma, the quiet strength she had displayed through hardship I could never endure. I thought of her mother, Abina, who had been silenced for decades. And I knew the truth could no longer remain buried. That evening, I brought Amma to the office, the very same space where she had been kept from her mother's life without knowing. I handed her a folder, carefully preserved letters, photographs, and financial documents. Her eyes widened as she flipped through them. Every photograph, every letter revealed the magnitude of the conspiracy that had kept her from a normal childhood. Every page was a testament to the betrayal that had haunted generations. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice trembling. I feel angry, hurt, and somehow, alive. I took her hand gently. You are alive, Amma. And no one, not my father, not Kabi, not anyone, will ever have the power to erase you again. Tears streamed down her cheeks. All this, it's too much. It's yours now, I said. Every bit. You get to decide what to do with it. And I will stand with you no matter what. She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting fear and hope intertwined. Even if the world turns against us? Even then, I promised. Because love is stronger than any empire or secret. We embraced quietly in the office, the weight of generations pressing down, yet slowly lifting with every heartbeat that connected us. For the first time it felt like a victory, fragile, yet undeniable. Yet as the city of Accra glimmered in the night outside, a shadow moved quietly across the streets. Kabi had returned, fueled by anger and greed. And someone else, someone I had trusted implicitly, had been feeding him information about our every move. The storm was not over. It had only grown stronger. Amma whispered softly against my chest, whatever comes, we face it together. I held her tightly, knowing the coming days would test us in ways we could not yet imagine. And in the silence I made a silent vow. No past, no secret, no betrayal would ever take her from me. Because by the time the dust settled, Amma and I would not only fight for our love, we would fight for the truth, for justice, and for the life that had been stolen from her. The night air held its breath. And somewhere, far in the shadows, Kabi and his unseen allies prepared to strike. The dawn over Accra felt unusually heavy, as though the city itself was bracing for what was to come. Amma and I rose early, though neither of us slept well. The night had been restless, haunted by the knowledge that Kabi and his allies were out there, ready to exploit every weakness, every secret, every shred of our past. Yet, as I looked at Amma preparing breakfast for the children who often gathered at her stall, her small acts of kindness unchanged despite the looming threat, I felt a courage I had never known before. Love, I realized, was not gentle. It was fierce. And it demanded that we face storms together. By mid-morning, I had arranged a meeting with my father and the board. I knew confrontation was inevitable. Secrets of decades had a way of surfacing, and I would not allow anyone, even my own father, to dictate who Amma and I could be. We gathered in the boardroom. My father's gaze was sharp, his presence commanding. The room buzzed with tension. Board members shifted in their seats, whispering rumors of scandal and betrayal. I stood tall beside Amma. The truth has been hidden long enough, I began. Amma Surwa is not just a woman I love. She is a survivor. Her mother was wronged, and she has the right to reclaim her life, her legacy, and her dignity. My father's face was unreadable. And you intend to bring this into the public eye? He asked, his voice low. I intend to stand by her, I replied firmly. All of her truths are now part of ours. And we will not hide from them. There was a long silence. Then, slowly, board members began to nod. Some hesitantly, some with curiosity, but the tide was shifting. Even my father's allies could sense that the era of secrets was ending. After the meeting, Amma and I returned to her home. The streets of Accra were alive with the scent of fried kelaweel and roasted corn. Children waved as she passed. For the first time in years, she moved through her world openly, unafraid, unhidden. She turned to me, her eyes glistening. I can't believe this, that we're actually doing this. That we're finally free. I took her hands in mine. No one will ever take you from me. Not wealth, not power, not fear. And then, without warning, Kabi emerged from the shadows, flanked by two men. His face twisted with anger, disbelief, and desperation. Akwasi, this is your empire. You cannot destroy it over a girl. Over your heart. I stepped forward, Amma's hand tightly in mine. This is not about destroying anything. It is about protecting what is right. And you, Kabi, are finished. He lunged, but before he could strike, security, loyal only to me, arrived. In minutes, he and his men were restrained, unable to interfere. Amma watched silently, a quiet strength settling over her features. You see, I whispered, nothing can touch us when we stand together. Later that evening, under the soft glow of the Accra sunset, Amma and I walked along the beach. The waves lapped gently against the sand, a soothing reminder that life could be calm even after storms. She looked up at me, smiling through tears. I never thought love could feel like this. Safe, powerful, true. I pulled her close. It is because it is real. And because we fought for it. Her head rested on my chest. Do you think my mother, and your mother, would be proud? They would be beyond proud, I whispered. Because we did not just survive. We thrived. We chose love over fear. And that is the legacy we carry forward. Amma smiled softly, the kind of smile that could quiet a city. Then let us build that life, together. I pressed a kiss to her forehead, sealing the promise. Together. Forever. Weeks passed. My father, slowly softened by Abina's return and the undeniable love between Amma and me, began to reconcile with the truth. He visited her mother, apologized for the wrongs of the past, and began taking steps to make amends. Amma's stall flourished. She began a small foundation in her mother's honor to help children whose lives were threatened by circumstance and neglect. The very children she had once shared food and laughter with, now receiving hope and opportunity. Our love grew, unwavering in its simplicity and strength. I often marveled at the irony. A billionaire's heart had been won not by wealth, not by luxury, but by a woman who sold food by the roadside, who carried history on her shoulders yet smiled through it all. And then one evening as the sunset painted the city gold, I looked into Amma's eyes and whispered, we've survived storms, secrets, betrayals, yet here we are. Stronger. Together. Ready for whatever comes next. She laughed softly, leaning into me. Whatever comes next, we face it side by side. And just as the horizon swallowed the sun, I knew the truth. Our love had survived everything that history, power, and fear could throw at us. It had triumphed. Yet even in victory, a subtle thrill ran through me, the knowledge that life would always test those who dared to love fearlessly. And I smiled, holding Ama close, whispering to the universe. Let it come. We are ready. The storm had passed. The past had been confronted. And the love that was always meant to be, had finally found its home.